Maker's Homestead. I just wanted to talk to you guys for a few minutes about the things that our family is doing right now to prepare for what could be coming down the pipeline in our country. I'm not going to go into politics. I'm not going to go into preaching about what anybody should or shouldn't be doing. I'm just going to let you guys know what we're looking at and what we're working on to try to protect ourselves. Whether it be us being at war, which, it's starting to look like we're going to be a three-front war before it's over with. I have no doubt that's where we're headed. Whether or not it hits our soil or not is still going to be a hardship on everybody here. We have inflation going through the roof right now. You go into the grocery store now and buy 3 little bags of stuff and it's $200. It's just gotten to a point where a lot of people can't even afford to eat like they used to eat anymore. We just don't know, what's coming down the pipeline, and things are real unsure right now. And I will tell you that Tim and I, Farmer Tim and me, have been preppers for over 20 years. We started back in 2020. Really it was 2019, the end of 2019. We literally both woke up one morning, looked at each other and said, prepping is not going to be enough. That is when we decided to start our homestead and become more self-sufficient, because we knew that putting back food storage and water and all of that stuff, as great as that idea that is, and believe me, we've used our food storage and stuff multiple times when different things were going on and we just did not want to spend the money to buy groceries or whatever. So, as good of an idea as that is, we thought it's better to be self-sufficient, because if things last for a really long time, and again, we don't know what's going to happen, then eventually that food is going to run out. And then where are you going to get more? Hopefully, if there's food shortages, it'll be one of those things where things may be rationed and you might not get as much, and therefore your food storage would last a lot longer because you just jump into it whenever you needed something. But if things did last for a long, long time, and for whatever reason, we don't know, the grocery store just ceased to be a thing, we wanted to know that our family could be fed, could have water, could have shelter. So there are 5 things today that I want to talk to you guys about, maybe looking at to protect your family in case of a major, major catastrophe. Okay? So we're going to do this one section at a time. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk to you guys about today is food. So we're going to go into the whole food situation first. We all have to have it. I'm a fat girl. I can go a little while without it, but to be honest with you, even I get low blood sugar and I get shaky if I haven't eaten all day. So I definitely don't want to have to go any days without food. So how much food should you put back, and what types of food should you put back? These are 2 very, very important questions, and again, these are going to be different for every family. You know what foods your family likes. You know what it is you will eat. I can give you some guidelines there. Be really good to just sit down and kind of make yourself a daily list. What do we usually eat for breakfast? Are we eating cold cereal? If we are, will milk be available to us? There's some very good non-refrigerated shelf-stable milk that you can get now that sits on a shelf for a while. If cereal is your thing, do that and do some milk. If you like eggs, then hey, chickens are something to think about if you have the place to put them. Take a look at your lunches. Do you typically eat a bowl of soup? Do you eat a sandwich? What are the types of things that you like for lunch? Then for dinner, typically at our house, a dinner for us is either a casserole or a soup or stew, or we have an entree. Then we have a side dish that typically is a starch, and then we have at least a vegetable that goes with that. Maybe bread, depending on what the meal is. So maybe you want to sit down and say, hey, if I have 3 months worth of food that I want to put back for my family, how many entree dinners am I going to need? How many servings of vegetables am I going to need? And then you go from there. That is what I've done on a spreadsheet for my family. Now, when it comes to what types of food to put back, having things in a freezer is great. But also think about what happens if the power is out. What if we have a grid down situation where our electric grid has been hacked? That's a very real possibility. There's an entire government entity right now that is trying to make sure that that doesn't happen and how to plan for it if it does. But it's your house. What if you have no power? So having stuff in the freezer is great, but you also want to make sure you have shelf-stable food, and you want to make sure that you have that protein, you have the carbs, and you also have those vitamin-filled veggies and fruits, and any type of bread that you might want. You know, if nothing else, you can put back some crackers, or you can learn how to make your own bread and put back the flour and the yeast, or learn how to do sourdough. You just want to make sure that your family has something to eat. When it comes to sweets, I do recommend that you put back something sweet if your family enjoys that. I'm only saying this because if it's a really bad situation, such as the electric grid going down, things are going to get pretty nasty. And sometimes just having some little something sweet at the end of your meal is really going to help your morale a little bit. Even if you take some hard candy and set that back in some airtight containers, that little tiny something sweet, especially if you have children, can make all the difference in the world.
The second thing I want to talk to you guys about is water. Definitely something you cannot live without. They say that you can go 3 months without shelter, possibly. You can go 3 weeks without food. You can't go more than 3 days without water. So, although that probably should have been number 1 on the list, we're going to talk about water next.
So, as I said, water is totally and completely a necessity. You can go up to 3 days with no water before you start having major issues, and you really don't want to go 3 days. You want to have something to drink every single day. Bottled water is an option. Bottled water is cheap. You can buy big, huge cases of it at Walmart or Sam's Club or Costco or wherever it is that, you shop to buy those kind of things. You want to try to store it in an area where it is not sitting in bright sunlight. And another thing, if you're a canner and you have a bunch of empty canning jars that you're just sitting around waiting to use, put water in them and store the water in your empty canning jars. That is a way to put some water back and keep the germs out and everything else. If you feel like you're going to be in a situation where your water goes out, and I will tell you this happened to us in Texas a couple of years ago, where we have what we still call now Snowmageddon. A lot of people went without water for at least 2 weeks, and some of them longer, and that was a big, huge issue here. Do you have a creek near your house? Do you have a lake near your house? If the water stops, go pull all of the water out of your hot water tank. If the water stops, go pull all of the water out of your toilet tanks. If you have to go to the bathroom outside, at least you have something to drink. If you feel like the water's about to go out, go fill your bathtub up as full as you can get it with water. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, that's kind of nasty, pulling the water out of the toilet tank. When you're looking at, this water's coming from a gross spot, guys, you can boil water to get rid of germs. You can sift water through a tea towel. There are a lot of things that you can do to clean up water so that you can drink it. Any water is better than having no water. Another suggestion is to start saving back rainwater. Now, I know in some areas it is technically not legal to put back rainwater. I can do it where I live. I don't know if you can or not. You might check into it. However, you're not going to be putting back, 18 swimming pools worth of rainwater. Okay?
put a few big 55-gallon drums out in your backyard. Nobody's going to know what's in there. And just store yourself some water back. Not only will you need it to drink, but you will also need it to bathe and stay clean. You will also need it in order to cook. If you're trying to preserve food out of your garden to make sure that your food supply continues, you're going to have it to can your food. If you have animals that you're raising for food, you are going to have to be able to water the animals. So just keep all of this in mind when it comes to the water.
The third thing I'm going to talk about today is shelter. And I'm not saying you have to go build a shelter somewhere. I personally feel like if things get really bad, living in a city where there's a large population is probably a bad idea. But I'm not going to tell everybody that lives in a city, oh, go move right now, because, that's tougher to do than, it's easier said than done. I will say that if you have the means to maybe buy a little acre or two of land somewhere, even if you built a yurt, even if you brought a portable building out there and turned it into a tiny home, which is what we live in now, even if you have an old camper trailer that you could take out there and just have some place to go if things in the city get really, really bad, because we've seen the last few years, things in the inner cities and even close to the outskirts of the city sometimes get nuts when things are going on. You do not want to be in the middle of that city if you're 2 weeks into no food, because it's not going to be a safe situation for you or your family. So we're going to talk about shelter next.
Okay, guys, when I say shelter, I don't just necessarily mean a roof over your head. I mean, definitely that's important to protect yourself from the elements, to protect you from, thunderstorms, to protect you from the snow, to protect you from major heat, to protect you from the sun, to have a safe place to sleep at night. The actual shelter that we're talking about itself is very, very important. However, there are other things involved with shelter. Number one is, do you think you'll be without electricity? Because a lot of things, like, for example, trying to get out of the heat, and I say this because I live in East Texas, we had over 40 straight days with temperatures up around, most days it was 105 to 110, but it was over 100 degrees for over 40 days straight. And, that was really tough on us. And during this hot part of the day, do your morning chores, come inside in the air conditioning for the hot part of the day, go back out in the evening and do more chores. But what if you don't have electricity? You have no AC. If you have electricity go out, do you have a way to heat your house if it's in the middle of winter? For example, do you have a propane heater, or do you have a heater that runs on some other type of fuel? Do you have a fireplace? Do you have a wood-burning stove? Now, another reason this is going to be important to have something besides electricity is to be able to cook your meals. If you don't live in the middle of a city, and who knows, if the electricity's out, it may not be an issue, but you can always build a campfire and cook on a campfire. But how much nicer would it be if the electricity was out to have a little propane camping stove that you could sit out on the porch or on the patio and cook what you need to cook? Even if it's heating up a can of soup, it's better than eating cold soup. So definitely when you're looking at shelter, you want to definitely make sure that you're thinking about all of the elements that are involved in that as well. Same thing with running water. If something happens to your running water, again, we've talked about water, but you want to figure out, how is that water going to work? How is that going to get into my house? How are we going to use it? So that's definitely something to put on your list to take a look at as well.
The next thing that I'm going to talk about today are medications. For those of you who have medications that are life-saving, that's something that we're going to go into next.
So back over the last 3 years, systematically started taking myself off of every pharmaceutical prescription that I have. The only pharmaceutical medication that I take anymore is an allergy medicine. And that had a lot to do with my unhappiness with the pharmaceutical industry over the last 3 years, and I can't get into that too much without YouTube flagging my video. But I will tell you that I made the personal decision to get off of any and all medication that I did not have to have. I did start learning about foraging for medicinal plants, and I actually have a huge cabinet that is completely full of medicinal plants that are dried, made into tinctures, made into all kinds of concoctions that I can use if I need to do that. If you have a life-saving medication that you cannot live without, as many people do, the best thing to do is to try to see if your doctor will allow you to do some extra months worth of medication. Typically, your insurance company will not pay for that. You will have to go and pay for that out of pocket if you can get the prescription written for it. There is also a website called yearlongrx.com that will allow you to do a year's worth of prescriptions at one time. Now, you have to use that year up before you can order another year, but at least it might be several months, if not more, prescriptions sitting there in case something happens. Let's say you can't get your prescriptions for a month or 2 months or 3 months. If you have that sitting there, that is going to make a huge difference. I can tell you right now, my husband is a diabetic and has heart problems because he has stents, and having those particular medications ahead of time could very well save his life in that situation. As far as over-the-counter medications go, you can buy as much of that as you want to and set it back. You need to put it in a cool, dry place. Even if you have to take things out and put them in a mason jar and put a lid on it, or put it in a Ziploc bag and zip that up to keep it airtight. Also, I would recommend putting back things for emergency medical situations, such as bandages and Neosporin and things like that.
And one of the last things I'm going to talk about today is protection for you and your family. And, everyone's got to make their own decisions on where they are willing to go as far as what they need to do to protect their family and where they're going to draw the line. That's something that we want to talk about for sure.
So guys, this one is, again, it's going to be different for every person. You're going to have to look at your morals and what you're willing to do in order to protect your family. We have a plan set aside for protecting our family and protecting our supplies for our family in case that is something that becomes an issue. Now, a lot of preppers do not want to let people know that they have food put back or water put back or any of that because they're afraid the whole world is going to show up at their doorstep if something happens. My husband and I decided 3 years ago when the pandemic hit and we were kind of a little bit worried about what was going to happen there, that we are not the type of people that can sit back and let people starve. And it is one of the decisions that prompted us to become self-sufficient. Because if I have a whole garden full of food, it is going to be a lot easier for me to help take care of my neighbors and my friends if we need to. Now, again, my family is going to come first. And they are the ones that are going to be first in line for whatever happens. But being self-sufficient means that I don't necessarily have to worry about, is it all going to run out and be gone forever? Because I'm going to have a continuous supply of things. But if it came down to the point where we had gangs showing up to murder my family, to steal their food, definitely I'm going to have a way to protect my family. 99% of us on this planet cannot afford to go build a huge underground complex bunker that we can hide in and, nobody can find us kind of thing. We're all going to be sitting here in our houses on our property, and we're going to have some type of way to protect ourselves. Now, if it comes down to it, all the protections in the world may not protect you. But
having a plan is better than not having a plan. So again, it is for your family to sit down and figure out, what are you willing to do, what are you not willing to do, and go from there.
And in closing out this video today, I just want to tell you guys again, these are things that we have put in place for our family. Every family is going to be different, and there are going to be different challenges for every family that are going to be different from ours. Ours are going to be different from my neighbors. Definitely something that everybody is going to have their own struggles with. But one of the reasons we started this channel was to share whatever knowledge that we did have with you guys, and hopefully gain some from you guys in return. If you have any comments about prepping or trying to just be ready for things that may be coming down the pipeline, then please get in the comments and let us know. And also our email is in our description box, so feel free to email if you don't want to comment publicly. And hopefully this will have helped some people out. I would encourage you, if you are worried about these types of situations, and you have other family members that might be needing this or has expressed an interest in trying to get their family prepared as well, please share this video with them. Hopefully there's something in here that will help everyone. So thank you guys for watching. We really, really appreciate it. Again, feel free to subscribe to our channel if you like our videos, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.